Hi, Gary from CAS Netlink here. I was just doing some password research recently and I discovered this site and decided to make a video about it. It's a great way of graphically demonstrating the difference in strength of passwords or more accurately how long it would take to crack a password given the content of the passwords. First, the disclaimer, as it says down here, it's not a password strength meter. And as the site owner says, the number one most commonly used password is 123456. The fourth most common is password. So any hacker or cracker attacker is going to use those two passwords immediately. And generally, if someone's doing a brute force attack, which is just a method of discovering passwords by trying every combination of characters, then they're also going to have a dictionary of many of the most common passwords, which are like admin, supervisor. So the two things I'm going to do in this video are just show what the difference is in time taken to brute force a password, and we'll also look at an easy way of having a complicated password that's easy to remember. I mean, that's always the problem. People like to have passwords that they can remember, and more often than not, that tends to mean that they create weak passwords. So let's take a look at, say I had a password that was just my first name, Gary. What this tells me is it's 26 letters in the alphabet, 4 characters. So the number of the actual search space is 475,254. Now that's the full search space, so it means that if it had to go all the way to Z on each of these characters, that's how many characters it would be, and this is how long it'd take. An online attack, assuming 1,000 guesses per second, which is very generous because most online password guessing is limited to at most a few hundred guesses per second, and quite often it's far less than that. So 7.92 minutes, a fraction of a second with an offline fast attack, which is 100 billion guesses per second, and then with a massive cracking array, which is something that most of us are not likely to encounter in our lifetime, but it's an even smaller fraction of a second. Now, if I just make the simple change of adding a capital letter at the start, now it's gone up to 7.4 million. 2 hours for the online attack scenario and still a fraction of a second for these. Now we can pretty much ignore that one because as I say, it's not something you're likely to encounter, but if you can get these up to high numbers, then there's a pretty good chance that your password is going to be very difficult to crack. So as you can see up here, 1 uppercase, 3 lowercase, no digits, no symbols. When you start adding digits and symbols, and just as importantly, length to the password, that's when it becomes much stronger. So here's a simple way of having a complicated password that you can easily remember. Let's say, and look, obviously I'm not going to use this particular method because I'm telling everybody about it, but it is just an example. So have a look at what I do here and then figure out your own kind of password template. That's basically what I would call this, a password template. Say I was signing up at gmail.com and so I decide that my password is going to be my name with a capital letter and the domain on the end. So then that becomes Gary Gmail. Now the online attack has gone up to 900 centuries, so 90,000 years. The offline fast attack 7.87 hours. That's not too bad. It means that they would have to be, running their hacking software, having downloaded a database of usernames and passwords. They'd have to be running it for a little under 8 hours. It's still not enough, and this is where it gets interesting. This is where we can really make this strong and remember it. Now you'll notice there's no digits and no symbols. So what if for each website, in between my name and the first part of the domain of where I'm signing up for, I put in 2 square brackets and 2 zeros. As you can see, the online attack is now 16.5 trillion centuries and the offline is 1.65 hundred-thousand centuries. So basically impossible to brute force that password. And for me, it's really easy to remember. My name with a capital G, these two zeros in the angle brackets, and then the first part of the domain. Now, obviously, if the domain's shorter, like this website here, GRC, then that time is going to come down. But it's still 18 centuries. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that calculation is based on everything being like all Zs, basically the full search space. So if we want to be accurate about how long it would take, we have to just say between one time and another. And what I mean by that, if you take one character off, it's 1 week in the massive cracking, where, as I say, we're not interested in that. 19.24 years. When I put that back on, that's the 18.28 century. So we could say that to crack that particular password, to brute force crack that password, would take between 19.24 years and 18.28 centuries. So I hope that's helpful. That's an easy way of making passwords for each website that you access, and knowing that those passwords are quite strong, as long as obviously you're not telling people what your system is. Now, your system might be 99 in there, it might be a couple of minuses, but the results are the same. It really just comes down to being something that you can remember. You know, smiley face, sad face. No, two smiley faces, whatever. But that one's 5.38 centuries. So that's the site, www.grc.com/haystack.htm. Have a visit, check out some of your own passwords, and make sure you read this stuff down the bottom, because it's really interesting. He talks about things like entropy, padding out passwords with characters like a dot, and just other stuff that's interesting as far as discovering how strong a password is going to be.